You're listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Rodriguez. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Rodriguez right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from May 22nd, 2023. It is the go-home show before this Saturday's Night of Champions pay-per-view taking place in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. How did this show play out? To be quite honest with you, I felt like this show did not feel important whatsoever. It honestly, again, and this is a common occurrence every time when I come on here on the Raw review discussing the show, those 3 hours, man, are such a drag to watch. I feel like I'm repeating myself constantly. But Jesus Christ, man, like there was a lot of things on this show where I just did not care about the things that were going on this show. I mean, we had literally Cody Rhodes getting beaten up by Brock Lesnar in the opening segment, per se, of the show. Paul Heyman literally opens the show with, like, you know, just basically hyping up the main event. And it's kind of questionable considering the fact that Paul Heyman is a SmackDown guy. You have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in the ring. We had a 6-man match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn teaming up with, you guessed it, Matt Riddle, taking on Imperium, which was actually a pretty good match to close out the show. But really, nothing really special happened on this show. I felt like, you know, the second hour, you know, the second to third hours, I don't know why, I just do not care at all. Literally, I'm looking at my phone every 5 minutes. Like every time when we go to commercial break on this show, for me, I feel like not only it feels like a break, but it also feels like just a sign of relief because I'm just like, oh my God, thank God. Well, at least I get a break for like at least 4 minutes, right? We also had a contract signing segment with Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus, in which I will be talking about a lot. And it's not a lot of good things to talk about when it comes to this contract signing. Honestly, I believe the feud between Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch is absolutely stupid. I mean, really, if you think about it, the creative direction of the women's division in WWE, there really is no direction whatsoever. I mean, literally, your top program is Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus, that being, is a Hall of Famer. Not only that, she's not even going to be a part of the roster. She's not even a full-time member of the roster, and she is literally in the top feud in the women's division. Overall, it wasn't really that good of a segment. Clearly, you can see the difference in promo quality when it comes to Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus. Really, again, I don't know, man. There was nothing special that happened on this show. And honestly, I just didn't really care about the show whatsoever. This was supposed to be the go-home show before Night of Champions, and this show did absolutely nothing to hype up Night of Champions, in my opinion. But those are my initial thoughts on Monday Night Raw. Before I get on with all of this craziness regarding Monday Night Raw, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Also, if you guys have missed it, episode 15 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast is up on the channel. We talk about the announcement, that being AEW's new 2-hour Saturday show that will be debuting June 17th on TNT, that being AEW Saturday Collision. We talk about that announcement and all of the drama that unfolded with CM Punk. I talk a lot about this whole situation because honestly, it's a really stupid situation, and AEW always catches themselves in a blunder where every time something good happens, something negative tends to overshadow it. And unfortunately, it happened once again, and it happened with CM Punk. And I try to really remain neutral with this whole discussion, and I felt like I gave the best analogy that I could possibly give on this whole particular situation. I still genuinely believe CM Punk will be returning to AEW, but again, it's just a whole shit show going on over in AEW regarding CM Punk, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And hopefully Tony Khan announces the United Center instead of fucking Daly's place this coming Wednesday on Dynamite. But episode 15 of the WrestleHavoc podcast is up on the channel. The link will be in the description below, as well as the SmackDown review, in which I talk about the bloodline continuing to crumble from within. Overall thoughts, I thought SmackDown was really an all-right show. Really, the only thing important that happened on the show was all the inner turmoil going on with the bloodline. It's really the only interesting thing that happens on SmackDown nowadays. But I'd rather take SmackDown overall any day of the week, because clearly SmackDown is the more important show than Raw. I feel like Raw is just kind of put on the back burner in my eyes. But the SmackDown review is up on the channel, so if you guys haven't checked out both episode 15 of the WrestleHavoc podcast and the SmackDown review, both links are in the description below. So, we're going to be opening up Monday Night Raw, and the opening shot of Monday Night Raw is Cody Rhodes arriving to the arena, and he literally gets attacked by Brock Lesnar. And what happens is Brock Lesnar sends him through a slew of kegs. Yes, kegs. Now, they're not full of beer, but they're empty kegs. And Cody, what happens is he gets hit with one of the kegs on his hand, or I believe on his shoulder. And really the whole story regarding this whole situation is basically Cody Rhodes is injured, quote unquote. He's not really injured. They're just selling the injury just to kind of, make the match, quote unquote, more interesting. Let's be honest with ourselves. The feud between Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes is not really that interesting in my eyes. They're definitely, in my opinion, going to be going for a trilogy, but we will be talking about that later on as we head towards the Raw review. After that, the show officially opens up, and Paul Heyman, who is a SmackDown talent, now he's not a wrestler, of course, he's a manager, but he was drafted with Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns to SmackDown in the draft. Now, I know he is a part of the bloodline. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are a part of Raw, and they're going to be wrestling Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. But again, the biggest problem with this is Paul Heyman is specifically on SmackDown. Right off the bat, WWE is breaking their own rules with the brand split, and this has been a common occurrence ever since the draft. I remember hearing all of these reports saying that WWE wants to, be more strict with the brand split. SmackDown guys stay on SmackDown and Raw guys stay on Raw. But literally every week, especially on Raw, we see SmackDown guys on Raw and Raw guys on SmackDown. At this point, it gets so confusing, and it really asks you the question, what the fuck was the point of the brand split, and what the fuck is the point of the WWE draft? The draft and the brand split in 2023 is completely fucking irrelevant, let alone the fact that you had the World Heavyweight Championship tournament in which it consisted of Raw talent and SmackDown talent, even though Triple H specifically said that the World Heavyweight Championship is going to be Raw exclusive. So the fact that you have the finals of Seth Rollins versus AJ Styles, even though I am excited about that match, and even though I think it's going to be a fantastic match at Night of Champions, it still creatively makes no sense considering the fact that AJ Styles is a SmackDown guy competing for a championship that is exclusive to Raw. Again, the brand split in 2023 makes no sense, and the brand split in 2023 is completely irrelevant. What the fuck are we doing here? That's all I'm going to say about that. But Paul Heyman is in the ring and talks about how he basically introduces himself as always. His name is Paul Heyman, and for the record, he had absolutely nothing to do with that. That being, of course, mentioning the attack that Cody Rhodes suffered at the hands of Brock Lesnar. What we all saw is something that he can testify to, just a mere example of what Cody is in for this Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. when he attempts to slay the beast, Brock Lesnar. Now he understands how much his special appearance on Raw last week was so well received. He's been invited back this week to incite his way onto the island of relevancy. He stops us he had to stop by the hellhole of Hershey, Pennsylvania, just to hype us on one simple fact. This Saturday afternoon, there are 3 main events at Night of Champions, capped off by the historic battle in which Kevin Owens and his miserable rat of a partner, Sami Zayn, will lose the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships back to the Bloodline, with the Usos sitting proud at home and watching on television. The new Tag Team Champions will be Solo and our tribal chief, the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, Roman Reigns. And now, ladies and gentlemen, and things that live in Pennsylvania for the first time, welcome to Monday Night Raw. Common occurrence every time on Raw, you have a different wrestler literally kind of like give this introduction and then says, welcome to Monday Night Raw. Honestly, I'm tired of that shit. I don't know why. Every time when I hear a wrestler says, welcome to Monday Night Raw, like it just pisses me off because it's so overabundant and it's so repetitive constantly. Kind of like with Cody Rhodes, being the first thing that he says is, he says the city name, the city name blank, what do you want to talk about? I get why they do that. I mean, granted, I'm kind of being hypocritical with Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns does it with Acknowledge Me, but when Roman Reigns does it, it actually feels cool. With Cody Rhodes, I just feel like, I don't know, man. It's your typical WWE babyface type shtick in which they try to like shove them down your throats. But I like Cody Rhodes, but that's just a little nitpick that I have. I just don't like the repetitiveness in WWE because they tend to do it all the time. But it is what it is. Paul Heyman was there for no reason, only to hype us in which what we're going to be seeing this coming Saturday at Night of Champions. He was really there for no reason whatsoever. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn come out, and literally Paul Heyman leaves the ring, and the crowd is singing Sami Zayn's theme, and literally one of the things that he asks is, where did Heyman go? But seriously, he's never seen somebody scurry off so bad like Heyman. He thinks they have a score to settle, but they're actually feeling pretty good about themselves. They're heading into the most important title defense ever since they won the championships at WrestleMania, and it's at Night of Champions when they face Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And he said it before, and he will say it again, and he is not ashamed to say it. This is very personal. Everything he said it straight to Roman's face this past Friday on SmackDown. Kevin Owens then says Roman Reigns on SmackDown dedicated this victory to Alpha and Sika. It inspired him to do the same. And he dedicated this victory over Solo Sikoa. He dedicated this victory over Solo and Roman to the true pillars of the bloodline, Jimmy and Jey Uso. So he's basically dedicating this win to Jimmy and Jey because they know, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens knows that Jimmy and Jey are in the doghouse when it comes to Roman Reigns. Sami says that is at Night of Champions. They have business that needs to be taken care of tonight. Tonight, they are in a 6-man tag team match against Imperium. Imperium then comes out, and then they surround the ring, that being, of course, the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, Ludwig Kaiser, and Giovanni Vinci. And basically what happens is they surround the ring, but what happens is out of nowhere, Matt Riddle runs to the ring to come to the aid of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And then Imperium retreat, and this is, of course, to build up for their 6-man tag team match later on tonight. They then leave, they run back, and then what happens is while they're walking down the ramp, literally Gunther and the rest of Imperium run back to the ring and a brawl breaks loose. Riddle manages to take out Gunther, and then all 3 babyfaces throw Gunther to the outside. So what are my opening thoughts on this whole segment? Honestly, I feel like we're starting to develop a certain trend when it comes to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Now, we all know Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are on Raw, but really, if you think about it, when they're on Raw, they're just there to kind of like, build up to a certain match they're going to have that particular night. It's very different on SmackDown. Even though Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are Raw guys, a lot of the important stuff revolving them happens on SmackDown. And this is another case of the fact that the brand split is completely irrelevant. Yes, I'm kind of being a little bit hypocritical, but let's be real here. Every time when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are on SmackDown, more shit is way more important than the shit that they do on Raw, even though they're a Raw exclusive, because, of course, they're in a feud with Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And by the way, Roman Reigns is not at the show, of course, because, again, he is SmackDown exclusive, and he also has a very, very, very light schedule. Byron Saxton is backstage in Cody Rhodes' dressing room. Adam Pearce comes in and he says he doesn't have any information at this time. After that, we get a opening match with Ricochet wrestling Bronson Reed. This was a pretty good match overall to start the show, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this show for what it was, or this match for what it was, to say the least. Ricochet's great. I absolutely love what they're doing with Bronson Reed. Yes, the crowd reactions, especially for Bronson Reed, are absolutely terrible. Literally every time when Bronson Reed wrestles, the crowd is just flat out dead. But, the crowd was really dead throughout the majority of this whole fucking show. I don't know, man. It's always the cities with WWE. Like, everybody talks about how, AEW has dwindling attendance. And that is very true. I mean, like, those Collision tickets are not selling well whatsoever. But Jesus Christ, less people that are in an AEW event are so much louder than a sold-out crowd in, for example, Hershey, Pennsylvania. That's just mad facts. Like, literally every time. It's very rare when AEW has a show and the crowd is dead. Like, there are some cities in AEW where the crowds are dead, but it's like a common occurrence, especially on Raw, that the crowd is just dead silent. Nobody gives a single shit whatsoever on what's going on in the show. I like my wrestling to have an energetic crowd and just a crowd that is just hyped up and literally reacts to everything. And look, that's not going to be every crowd. But again, it's a common occurrence, especially on Raw. Jesus Christ, these crowds are so terrible. I don't know what fucking cities y'all be going to, but these crowds are mad dead, man. Literally, come to the Prudential Center, Newark, New Jersey. They haven't gone to Prudential Center ever since, they went back on the road 2 years ago after the pandemic. They still haven't gone to Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. I don't know why. WWE, if you're watching this, you're probably not. Please, book a SmackDown show or a pay-per-view at the Prudential Center, for fuck's sakes. All right, we got Ricochet versus Bronson Reed. We get repeated, and this is a common occurrence throughout the match. Ricochet goes for repeated kicks onto the leg of Bronson Reed. Reed then pushes Ricochet into the corner, but then Ricochet goes for a couple of shots. After that, he hits a dropkick on the left knee of Bronson Reed, and then Reed catches Ricochet, but then he picks him up. Ricochet then escapes and continues to hit his kicks, and then Reed catches Ricochet once again, but then Ricochet escapes and hits the enziguri, which drops him down on one knee. After that, Ricochet runs into a splash by Reed, but then he hits the elbow drop, and he follows up with the steamroller. After that, Ricochet is on the outside, but then Reed drives his elbow down on Ricochet on the outside. Once we're back from commercial break, Reed picks up Ricochet. Ricochet then delivers the knees to escape, and what happens is he manages to escape. After that, Reed hits the Samoan drop on Ricochet. We then get a cover and a near fall. Ricochet at this point is on the apron, but then Ricochet manages to fight back. Ricochet then goes to the top, but then he misses and lands on his feet. Ricochet then goes for a dropkick on Reed's knee, but then Ricochet ends up going for a super kick. After that, he hits the spinning heel kick, and then he follows up with a running shooting star press. Every time when Ricochet goes for the running shooting star, it's fucking beautiful. After that, we get a cover and a kick out. Ricochet then goes for a lion salt or springboard moonsault, whatever you want to call it. I just call it the springboard moonsault. I only call it the lion salt with Chris Jericho. When Chris Jericho's there, I will call it the lion salt, but it's a springboard moonsault. Reed then grabs Ricochet. Reed then regains control and throws Ricochet to the outside, but then Reed is on the apron. He then tries to go for the shoulder block, but then Ricochet counters with a knee on Bronson Reed. After that, we get a kick by Ricochet, but then Ricochet goes for a springboard, but then Reed moves the ropes, basically knocking down Ricochet. After that, he splashes him into the corner. He goes for a furious, and this was a smooth ass, I'm being straight up, this was a smooth ass power slam by Bronson Reed. Bronson then goes to the top, and then he goes up to the top and hits the tsunami. And every time when he hits the tsunami, man, you have Corey Graves on commentary just screaming out of his lungs the tsunami, which is one of my favorite things about Corey Graves. He does the same thing with Shinsuke Nakamura with the Kinshasa. Say what you want about Corey Graves, but he is literally the one carrying the commentary team on Raw, because I don't know who else they got there. What's his name? Kevin Patrick, that's his name. Kevin Patrick, with all due respect, and I don't mean this personally, he fucking sucks. He's absolutely terrible on commentary, and I mean this with the utmost respect. They really need to fix their commentary team. Like, literally, Corey Graves is carrying the whole thing, and literally he just is. He I believe he's color. I don't think he's play-by-play. I don't know. I believe Kevin Patrick is play-by-play, but it's kind of weird because, like, I remember when Adnan Virk was commentating for, like, those very few months 2 years ago, he was play-by-play and Corey Graves was kind of color, but Corey Graves was kind of doing play-by-play things as color, which I don't know why, man. Again, they really need to fix the commentary team on Raw. On SmackDown, perfection with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. I really wish it was Pat McAfee and Michael Cole because they're great chemistry, but Michael Cole has great chemistry with Wade Barrett. But the commentary team on Raw is just atrocious. But Bronson Reed ends up getting the win. Honestly, I love what they're doing with Bronson Reed. That's one of the very few things that they're actually doing right. And honestly, he could possibly set himself up for, the mid-card title scene. I would love to honestly see a match with Bronson Reed and Gunther. Now, granted, we all know the outcome. We all know what the outcome is going to be if Bronson Reed faces off against Gunther. So most likely that shit ain't happening now. But nonetheless, I love what they're doing with Bronson Reed, and hopefully they can keep it up. We get a backstage interview with Apollo Crews, who made his return last week on Raw. He talks about how he hopes Cody is okay, which I don't know why he's mentioning Cody Rhodes because Cody Rhodes has nothing to do with him, and talks about how he'd be lying to say if he's excited to come back. And then what happens is Dominik, Mysterio, and the SmackDown Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley, come in, and they interrupt. And Dominik basically says Apollo who, and then Apollo says he's everything he isn't, and then Dominik says that this interview is over because Mommy has a lot of things to say. And then the camera pans to Rhea Ripley, and she basically says Natalya, she has had a very legendary career in WWE. She will make her regret getting drafted to Raw, and she will end her career. And then what happens is Apollo Crews manages to interrupt once again. Dominik gets pissed, saying that you don't interrupt Mommy. And after that, Apollo says, what are you going to do about it? Basically implying that he wants to wrestle him in a match, and Dominik ends up accepting the match because Dominik, we all know how he is. Number one, this whole interruption with Rhea Ripley talking about Natalya, I don't know why, man. And again, this is nothing personal. This is with all due respect, but does anybody care about Natalya in 2023? Does anybody care about Natalya in 2023? If there's any wrestler on the WWE roster that is completely irrelevant in this day and age, it's Natalya. I'm not taking anything away from her in-ring talent, but let's be honest with ourselves. Every time when Natalya, like, nobody watches WWE for Natalya, and honestly, is that really the best that they have for Rhea Ripley? I mean, I feel like Rhea Ripley's title run has just been like just kind of lackluster so far. Like, it's like AEW, man. Like, when Thunder Rosa had the women's championship, her title run, we all expected Thunder Rosa's title run to be great, but it ended up kind of being a flop. Like, it's basically the same thing with Rhea Ripley. Like, what are they doing with Rhea Ripley? What captivating story could they have with Rhea Ripley? They don't have anything interesting with Rhea Ripley at all. And that sucks because I feel like Rhea Ripley is just so good at what she does. She deserves to be the SmackDown Women's Champion, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, WWE has all these problems in the women's division. I mean, right at the top, the titles. I don't know why the SmackDown title is on Raw and the Raw title is on SmackDown. Very simple things that do not need to happen are happening. And honestly, WWE just completely ignores them because, again, they don't like following any logic at all. And they just do what the fuck they want to do at this point. It's ridiculous. Like, literally. Why is Rhea Ripley on Raw? I get it, she's a part of Judgment Day, but she is the SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw. That makes no sense. Whatever. But, again, this feud with Natalya, I'm not interested at all. Literally, that is literally the best they got for Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley against Natalya. I don't know, man. With all due respect, I'm not really the biggest Natalya fan, but whatever. We get a video package continuing with Seth Rollins talking to Corey Graves in a pre-recorded interview, and he is asked about Roman Reigns. Talks about how he loves Roman Reigns. He loves him, but at the same time, he doesn't like him. That's brotherhood. He will always have love for that man. But the person he has become and the champion he has become, he has no respect for him. He has been poisoned by his own ego, and the biggest thing is that title. He is taking opportunities away from everybody else, and he will become the World Heavyweight Champion so we can all forget about Roman Reigns. Raw can literally be the land of opportunity. No, that was SmackDown in 2016. It can push the industry forward, and he wants challenges. Someone needs to carry the torch when he is gone. AJ Styles is one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. But AJ, he had come to stance before. So, and then he talks about, and they actually showed a video package of AJ Styles and Seth Rollins when he was Tyler Black at the time, back in 2006, wrestling a match in which I believe it was after the match, AJ Styles says that Tyler Black was going to be the future of this business, something like that. I loved how they added that, which was absolutely great. I loved that about that. And Seth then says he's at the top of his game, and he is feeling invincible. Overall thoughts, this wasn't bad. I've been really enjoying the interview that Seth Rollins has had with Corey Graves. They started showing these video packages last week. Now, I wish they could have had done something with AJ Styles, because I feel like the biggest problem going in with Seth Rollins and AJ Styles is that they're really focused more on the build to this match with Seth Rollins rather than AJ Styles. If they had done an interview similar to what Corey Graves did with Seth Rollins with AJ Styles, it would have made things a little less predictable and a little more unpredictable. Because going in, we all know who's going to be winning the World Heavyweight title. It's definitely not going to be AJ Styles. Now, again, I talked about this last week on Raw, on the Raw review, but some podcasters have been speculating an idea in which, yes, AJ Styles is a SmackDown wrestler, but if he won the World Heavyweight title, you can do the trade with, you can do a trade and bring AJ to Raw with the OC, and you can literally bring Cody Rhodes to SmackDown, and then you can set it up at SummerSlam. But that is just a thought. That is not my original, idea. A lot of podcasters, primarily Solid Monster, he came up with that concept, and honestly, that's not a bad idea whatsoever. Even though, yes, that is WWE breaking their rules. I mean, WWE tends to break their rules all the fucking time, so at this point, who gives a shit? But, nonetheless, it's going to be a great match at Night of Champions, but we kind of all know who's going to be winning that match. It's going to be Seth Rollins. And I genuinely believe Seth Rollins is going to have a decent run with that World Heavyweight title. There's a lot of potential on the main event scene on the Raw side. You got, Judgment Day. You got Gunther. Let's be real here. Gunther winning the World Heavyweight Championship would be a great thing, because then it can solidify that title as a legit title in WWE and wouldn't be looked at as secondary. But a problem with it is if Gunther had that title and Roman Reigns is still the champion, even though Gunther would be very dominant with that title, he would still be looked at as a secondary champion because of the fact that Roman Reigns has both of the titles. But even if Gunther wins those titles, I feel like at that point Roman Reigns would no longer have the championships, but that is just me. That is just pure speculation on my end. But again, I feel like Seth Rollins is going to have a great run with the World Heavyweight Championship. After that, we got Damian Priest and Finn Balor in a backstage interview. Damian Priest gets pissed off and he threatens him, and Balor says that he should congratulate them on their victory. Tonight he faces Shinsuke Nakamura, and he caused Priest a shot at the World Heavyweight title, and he also disrespected Damian last week. And if you disrespect one member of the Judgment Day, you disrespect all members of the Judgment Day. And he will leave a little bit more over Shinsuke Nakamura so Damian can pick up the bones. After that, we got Candice LeRae, and this is where the show starts going downhill. We got Candice LeRae versus Zoey Stark. This is Zoey Stark's second match on the main roster. I completely forgot who she wrestled last week. But she wrestled Candice LeRae. It was a relatively short match, honestly. Zoey immediately goes after Candice. She sends Candice into the corner. She hits a high kick, and then she drives Candice down to the mat with the suplex. After that, we get a cover and a near fall, but then Zoey hits repeated right hands. After that, she applies a chin lock, and then Nikki Cross comes out. And Zoey runs into a boot. After that, Candice hits a drop kick, and then she hits a hip attack. Not a drop kick. She hits a hip attack in the corner. After that, after the hip attack spot, she hits the step-up senton onto the back of Zoey. After that, she drop kicks Zoey onto the outside, and then Candice takes out her on the outside with the springboard maneuver. I completely missed that spot. It was a springboard. I don't think it was a springboard moonsault, but I completely missed that spot, so my apologies for that. Nikki Cross then celebrates with Candice, even though she didn't even win the match. Then Zoey takes out both women onto the outside. Then in the ring, Zoey hits the Z360, the Z360, and we get a cover, and Zoey Starks gets the win. I think Zoey Starks is great. You know, I've seen a couple of her matches in NXT. Again, I don't watch a lot of NXT religiously. I just don't. Like, I treat NXT like, I'm be honest, like I don't even watch Ring of Honor anymore. I'm trying to get back in the field of watching Ring of Honor, but honestly, it's just match after match after match. With NXT, I'm just not really that invested in NXT. I just don't care what's going on in NXT. So honestly, I just don't pay attention at all to it. But nonetheless, this was not a bad match whatsoever. Actually, I don't even know what the hell I said. Whatever. It was a relatively short match, but it was fine. Mustafa Ali in a backstage interview. Now, this is very weird. So Mustafa Ali, of course, has been doing this whole positive character, which honestly, I know a lot of people do not like, and I totally understand that, but I even came on this show and stated like, hey, it could possibly work. It's very weird. So right off the bat, you, the viewer watching this, you would immediately think, oh, wow, Mustafa Ali is actually getting serious. And he talks about how he's been dreaming about this opportunity. One of the things that I do not like, and I talked about this at the top of the review, is the constant repetitiveness in WWE. One of those instances in repetitiveness in WWE is the constant usage of the word opportunity. Every time nowadays when a wrestler uses the term opportunity, it just pisses me off because, like, again, how many fucking times could you use the word opportunity? Just say title shot, for God's sakes. But whatever. That's just a nitpick on my end. He's been dreaming about this opportunity. Dreaming is about becoming a champion, or dreaming on becoming a champion. He hasn't come close to that. It's been failure after failure after failure. So it looks like we're leading to a pretty serious promo with Mustafa Ali, but what happens is Brock Lesnar passes through Ali, and the camera pans to Brock Lesnar as he's leaving Gorilla to head to the ring. He passes through Ali and he says, "Get a life, kid." I laughed my ass off when I saw that. Look, say what you want about Brock Lesnar, but the Cowboy Brock character, I have it on record, like coming on this show and stated, the Brock Lesnar Cowboy character is one of my favorite things about Brock Lesnar nowadays. You know, I love that ever since he kind of split from Paul Heyman after, when Roman joined him, everything about, Brock Lesnar's character is just fucking genuine and hilarious. And when he said "get a life, kid" to Mustafa Ali, I just died of laughter because we all know Mustafa Ali ain't walking out of Saudi Arabia with the IC championship. There's no fucking way he's going to beat Gunther. Now, that is to say, Gunther and Mustafa Ali are going to have a banger match at Night of Champions. But again, who gives a shit? Brock Lesnar comes out and he cuts a promo in the ring. So, Hershey, Pennsylvania, what do you want to talk about? That's a little nod right there to Cody Rhodes. He would boo Cody too. Unfortunately, Cody won't be out here tonight. Cody will not be fighting Brock Lesnar at Night of Champions this Saturday either. But don't you worry. Brock Lesnar will not let you down, and he will issue an open challenge for anybody back there to fight him at Night of Champions. All they have to do is step out here and step up to Brock Lesnar. And what happens is Cody comes out, and he has a sling on his arm, of course, selling his quote-unquote bad arm, which we all know it's not. He's just selling the arm for the match on Saturday. So he comes out, and the referees and Adam Pearce warn him not to go to the ring. Cody enters the ring. He takes off his sling. He still has his arm like this, and he's still selling his arm. And what happens is both men manage to brawl. But what happens is Brock Lesnar applies the Kimura lock on the injured arm of Cody Rhodes, and it looks like he injured his arm even further, and he leaves Cody Rhodes laying in the ring. And that was that. Overall thoughts on this quote-unquote segment that happened. Honestly, look, say what you like. I don't really care a lot about this feud. This feud, to me, and this is why, I stated this weeks ago, this feud could have been so much better if the world title was involved. And that's why I always stated that Cody Rhodes should have won at WrestleMania. If there was a time to pull the trigger with Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns, it was at WrestleMania at SoFi Stadium because the crowd was all over Cody Rhodes in that match. Now, I'm not coming on here and saying that the fans are going to turn on Cody Rhodes because so far the fans are still loving Cody Rhodes. I'm still going to at least hopefully trust the process, but honestly at this point I could care less. Honestly, man, again, this feud would have been so much more interesting if the world title was involved. Then we have a valid reason as to why Brock Lesnar is doing all these things to Cody Rhodes. What is the whole point of Brock Lesnar wanting to attack Cody Rhodes? We really haven't gotten a legit explanation regarding this whole deal. So honestly, what is the point? I'll tell you what the point is. There's no point whatsoever, and that is the biggest problem with this feud. Do I think they're going to be delivering a great match at Night of Champions? Yeah, and I definitely do see them doing a third match. Hopefully not at SummerSlam, because honestly, the most logical choice for the main event of SummerSlam is Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. I do not want them to do the third match at SummerSlam. I want them to do the third match at Money in the Bank. But nonetheless, this was a segment just to build up for the match. Honestly, they're really trying to book Cody as like this unstoppable babyface as he is. I totally get it. It's the WWE babyface motto. I would understand it. All right, let's continue on with the show. We then get our next match of the evening. We got the Alpha Academy taking on the Viking Raiders. It was a relatively short match as well, but this wasn't a bad match whatsoever. Chad Gable is fucking awesome. Eric and Gable start. Eric has Gable up, but then Gable he goes for the head scissors. We then get a deep arm drag by Gable, but then Gable tries to tag and Otis, but then Eric hits a forearm. Ivar then tags in, and then the Viking Raiders manage to gang up on Chad Gable. Or I should say, yeah, they gang up on Chad Gable. After that, Eric tags back. We get a double team by the Raiders. After that, we get a cover by Eric and a near fall. Eric takes Gable into the corner, but then Ivar spears through Gable. After that, we get a cover by Ivar and a near fall, but then Ivar continues to be in control. Gable then tries to fight back, but then we get the sunset flip by Gable, but then he tries to tag in Otis, but then Ivar holds on. Gable then rolls through and Otis tags in. He fights off both Raiders, and then he picks up Ivar and body slams him down. We get a splash into the corner by Eric. Otis then goes for the Caterpillar. A little nod right there to Heavy Machinery. After that, he hits the elbow drop, but then he gets driven face first into the corner. After that, Gable goes for the deadlift German suplex, which every time when he goes for a deadlift German or the rolling German, honestly, I don't know, man. Chad Gable is just a fucking wrestling machine, no pun intended, but he really is. Eric tags in. Eric takes out Gable with the knee, but then Valhalla chases Maxine Dupree. Gable then kicks Ivar onto the outside, and then Gable goes for a roll-up, and Alpha Academy surprisingly end up getting the win over the Viking Raiders. Overall thoughts on this match, I'm relatively enjoying Alpha Academy. You know, at first I remember like last year, 2 years ago, I wasn't really that invested in Alpha Academy. I thought that it was a stupid gimmick, but they made it work. And honestly, the whole Gable with the whole shoosh thing, it's pretty hilarious nowadays. But honestly, what is the direction? There's really no direction. And the biggest question regarding direction is, what is the direction with the Viking Raiders? There's one thing that I do not like about WWE programming, especially with a lot of, you know, the talent that Triple H apparently wants to push. What the fuck are they doing with the Viking Raiders? I have absolutely no idea. I could care less. Every time when the Viking Raiders show up, I just literally zone out and focus on my own little world. I could care less about the Viking Raiders. Byron Saxton backstage on the outside of Cody's dressing room. Adam Pearce storms in his dressing office, and they both argue. Cody immediately kicks him out, and it looks like both men are pissed the fuck off. After that, we got Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Finn Balor of the Judgment Day. I know a lot of people were very excited about this match, and this was a very good match. This wasn't a bad match whatsoever. Could it have been a much better match? Because we all know these two men are capable of having a great match, considering they both, you know, wrestled in Japan. Yes, they are capable of having a better match, but honestly, for what they gave on television, it wasn't bad whatsoever. Balor's in control over Shinsuke Nakamura. Then Shinsuke goes for a knee on Balor, but then he drives the boot onto the face of Balor into the corner. After that, Shinsuke goes for an enziguri. And after that, he picks up Balor and takes him to the top turnbuckle. After that, he drives his knee into the midsection of Balor, but then he goes for the sliding dropkick on Balor, sending him to the outside. And then he takes Balor into the ring, but then Balor regains control with the kick. After that, both exchange shots. Shinsuke is on the apron, but then Balor distracts the referee. Priest drops Shinsuke onto the outside, laying him with a chop block. Or a cheap shot, I should say. I said chop block, what the hell? Then once we're back from break, Balor is in control. Balor then applies the East Side headlock, but then Shinsuke Nakamura fights back. After that, we get repeated kicks by Balor, but then Shinsuke holds on. Shinsuke goes for a right, and then he picks up Balor, but then Balor escapes. We get a kick to the back of Finn Balor. He follows up with a sliding German suplex. Every time when Shinsuke does the sliding German, man, I mark the fuck out. That's a smooth-ass movement right there. Priest is on the outside. He looks at Shinsuke, but then he goes for the spinning kick on Balor. We get a cover into near fall. Balor ends up going for the roll-up, and then we get a near fall. Balor ends up hitting the sling blade after that, but then he runs into a kick by Shinsuke. Shinsuke then runs into a double stomp by Balor, but then Balor goes to the top. He misses the coup de grace, but then Priest protects Balor, and then Shinsuke drops a knee on Priest. And then he attacks Priest onto the outside, but then he clotheslines Priest into the timekeeper's area, but then Balor goes for the running shotgun dropkick. After that, he takes him back into the ring. He goes to the top and he hits the coup de grace, and Finn Balor ends up getting the win over Shinsuke Nakamura. Overall, this wasn't a bad match whatsoever. Again, both men are capable of having a very good match. It's impossible for both of these men to have a bad match, and these guys definitely delivered a great match on this show, and hopefully we can just move on after this, because let's be honest, what are they doing with Shinsuke Nakamura? They're really doing nothing with them, and hopefully when it comes to Judgment Day, Judgment Day ends up expanding, because one of the things that we did not get on this show was J.D. McDonough. Of course, last week, they did a lot of things with J.D. McDonough. Of course, I believe it looks like, what it looks like at least, is J.D. McDonough is going to be entering himself into a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which is not a bad feud whatsoever. And they did tease him possibly joining the Judgment Day, because if you guys do not recall, last week on Raw, they had J.D. McDonough having a backstage interview, and you literally saw Finn Balor just looking upon J.D. McDonough. So it looks like J.D. McDonough is on his way to becoming the newest member of the Judgment Day. And honestly, I'm 100% for that decision. I absolutely love what they are doing with J.D. McDonough, but they're not really doing. They did not do anything with J.D. McDonough on this show, which I do not know why. After that, we get a nothing match. To be quite honest with ourselves, we got Raquel Rodriguez versus Sonya Deville. This was a nothing match. Sonya goes after Raquel in the beginning of the match. We get a cover into kick out. We then get a right hand by Sonya into the corner, but then she drops a knee on Raquel. And then we get a cover into near fall, and then we get repeated shots by Sonya into the corner on Raquel. And then Sonya runs into a boot, but then Raquel goes for a corkscrew elbow. Raquel then gets her up and hits the Tahana Bomb, and we get a cover, and she wins the match. Great, nobody cares. After the match, Chelsea Green attacks Raquel, and then the heels gang up on Raquel, but then what happens is Shotzi comes in for the save, and then Shotzi ends up hitting the suicide dive on both heels, and both baby faces stand tall in the middle of the ring, as it looks like Raquel Rodriguez now has a new tag team partner in Shotzi Blackheart. Okay, great. Again, the women's tag team scene in WWE, again, directionless. I know I constantly use the word direction, but again, it's directionless. There's no point in the women's tag team championships, and literally when it comes to every babyface women's tag team or women's babyface makeshift tag team that WWE just puts two wrestlers together and boom, they got a tag team. It's literally the same thing over and over again. Oh my God, we're best friends. Ha ha ha, we're best friends. I don't know, man. That don't do it for me. It just doesn't. It really just doesn't do it for me. Adam Pearce is backstage. Trish Stratus comes in and talks about how she had room on our schedule for this contract signing. She was thinking to have a no-touch policy in this contract signing. And Adam says that, literally it's been so fucking hectic on this show that I don't want to deal with any bullshit anymore. There's no need for it. So after that, we got the Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus contract signing. You guys know my stance on this feud. This feud really just makes no sense. I am not a fan of this feud. Trish Stratus's promos have been fucking terrible, in my opinion. And I love Trish Stratus. I honestly do. I love Trish Stratus. I think she's great. But these promos, man, have been fucking atrocious, especially on this segment. Literally, the promo skills between Trish and Becky Lynch are as night and day, completely different. Like, Becky at least had some, like, passion in the promo. And I'm not saying that Trish doesn't have any passion. Well, maybe I am. I don't know. But, like, I don't know, man. I just don't feel that genuineness when it comes to Trish Stratus and her promos. Like, she says, like, every heel, like, especially when it comes to the women's division, it's the same shit over and over again. I was the trailblazer. WWE loves using, again, an overabundance of the same fucking words. First is opportunity, which they overuse that word to death. And the second word that they overuse to death is trailblazer. I'm the trailblazer. I was like, the women's division before there was the women's division. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the same old promo that I constantly hear all the time in any major women's feud, especially in WWE. Like, it just, like, bro, give me, like, a legit feud that you have two women that just flat out do not fucking like each other and just want to beat the living shit out of each other. That is what I want to see in a women's wrestling match. That is what I want to see. But in this case, this is just dumb. This is just really dumb. I'm not a fan of this feud at all. This contract signing was just not good at all. I just did not give a single shit about it whatsoever, but we're going to go through it. So Becky calls her out to take care of business. She signs the contract, and Trish Stratus takes her time. Trish comes out, and Trish says that she jumps right into it. Of course, this was when Becky Lynch just signed the contract. She wasn't so eager to come back to Raw after she kicked her head in. This is the kind of a big moment. It's her first contract signing. She wanted to enjoy this. The GOAT has come around to Hershey, like the chocolate, to Hershey. Look at her, cool and casual. Contract signings aren't a big deal. And do you know why she had so many of them? Because of her. Because of the work she did. She single-handedly changed women's wrestling. She comes back and contract signings are a normal part of the women's division because of her. She said that she wanted to come back and be number one again. Honey, she is number one. She's still number one and will always be number one. It didn't take a broken nose for her to get there. She was number one from day one. She says that what happens is when she beats her at Night of Champions, that makes her it. And what will happen to her is that she will crawl back to a deep, dark place and see Becky. She's got it all figured out. She sees her weak spots. Her biggest problem is her, and she is her own worst enemy. When she wanted to find a name with the badness in her head, she is staring her right in the mirror. And she will sign this. But isn't it ironic because it's her first contract signing, and then we'll make it her last contract signing. And then Trish Stratus manages to sign the contract, and Becky gets the microphone. Becky gets the mic, and then Becky says that she is scared that she will hurt her. She wanted her at her full health, and she is scared of something bigger. She is scared that history will be forgetting her. She just stayed the same. What's more is that they remember her as being better than she is. She is better than what she thinks she is. She needs to worry that she isn't back. She wants her flowers, and that's all this is about. She will say it to her face. Thank you for being everything she hopes she never becomes because she is trash. Ashes, so heart and fashion, she is it and she is not. And she can stab people in the back and she will punch her in the face every single time. That is when she looks in the mirror and carry on regardless that she isn't perfect. She had a career only Trish can dream of. And while she has done things that are nightmarish, if you think barking like a dog is embarrassing, just wait until she kicks her ass at Night of Champions. Welcome to the big time, bitch. Woof, woof. And then, basically, you guys know the gist of a contract signing. They fucking shove the table in the corner, and they kind of, like, face off. It looks like they're about to beat the shit out of each other. This is just to build up for their match at Night of Champions. Again, I loved, that was savagery when Becky Lynch mentioned the barking like a dog, which you guys all know what that means. I mean, you guys been watching, whoever's watching this video clearly has watched wrestling for a long time. You guys know exactly what Becky Lynch is talking about. Of course, she's talking about that segment in which Vince McMahon literally back in, I believe it was like 2001, where he literally made Trish Stratus strip down in the middle of the ring in front of thousands of people and in front of millions on television and literally made her crawl and bark like a dog. That is exactly what she mentioned right there. She didn't really need to mention that, but whatever. Honestly, again, the promo difference are as night and day, man. Like, Becky is clearly better promo-wise than Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus does not feel genuine whatsoever. Again, you know, she mentions things like, I was the trailblazer, you should thank me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we have heard promos like these in WWE all the fucking time. This is why I praise AEW so much. Like, I criticize AEW all the time. Trust me. If you guys haven't watched episode 15, watch episode 15. But, bro, one of the things that I love so much about AEW is that their promos, at least most of the time, there are some wrestlers that are not really that good in promos, but the majority of the time, the promos that we hear are legitimately genuine and they honestly feel real. When it comes to WWE, it's just so formulaic. It doesn't feel genuine. And honestly, it kind of makes you want to scratch your head. And the promo that Trish Stratus cut made me want to scratch my head. Like, that's exactly how it felt, but that is just me. After that, we got Dominik Mysterio versus Apollo Crews. Relatively short match. We got a shoulder tackle by Apollo. After that, Apollo continues to be in control over Dominik, but then he picks up Dominik, and then he hits a delayed vertical suplex. Crews is on the apron, but then he goes to the top, and then he gets dropped by Dominik, and then he hits repeated stomps on Crews. Dominik, after that, goes for the Three Amigos, and then we get a side headlock by Dominik on Crews. Crews drops down Dominik with the follow-away slam, but then he hits the blockbuster off the top. After that, he hits a crossbody on Dominik, and then we get a cover and near fall. We get a dropkick by Dominik onto the back of Crews, but then Crews drags Dominik to the outside, and he hits a right hand. After that, Rhea Ripley protects Dominik. Dominik then sends him to the steel steps. Dominik then distracts the referee in the ring, and then Rhea pushes Crews to the post, but then Crews ends up coming back in the ring, and this is actually a pretty dope spot. Crews actually slid back in the ring, and Dominik was already on the top, and as soon as Crews slid back in the ring, Dominik immediately hit the frog splash on the back of Apollo Crews. That looked sick as fuck in my opinion. And we get a cover, and Dominik wins the match. Let's move on. We get a video package, a very good, well-done video package on AJ Styles. If there's anything that I can praise WWE on, it's their video packages. WWE, I mean, let's be realistic. Nobody can top WWE in production. They are the masters at this shit. And when it comes to their video packages, WWE are the masters of that as well. And I really love the video packages that they put on AJ Styles. They basically showed footage of his days in WCW, of course. He made his debut, I believe it was in a tag team called Air Raid. And I think it was Air Paris. I think that was the guy's name. I'm not sure. That was a tag team partner, but he was literally wrestling in like the final weeks of WCW's existence. It was crazy. And then like literally weeks later, WCW gets bought out. You guys know the story. We then get the second part of the Seth Rollins interview, and he's asked, why is the World Heavyweight Championship so special to him? He talks about how he goes back to where they started. It is time for a change. Think, because he always felt like he was never made as the guy. Wrestling was his first love. This has been everything he has ever dreamed of, and it's given him a life beyond his wildest dreams. He just wants to be seen to be the best person he can be, and the World Heavyweight title right now is to do something special. He's putting all his chips in. He will give everything that he has, and he will create something that will live on forever. And he wants to be someone that the future can look to as that's the guy. After that, we got our main event of the evening. Oh, and by the way, we will be having Money in the Bank qualifying matches next week on Raw. We got Imperium versus Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle. This was a relatively good match. It was not a bad match whatsoever. And, of course, the babyfaces ended up getting the win. Kaiser and Sami start the match. Kaiser takes Sami into the corner, but then we get repeated kicks by Kaiser. And then Kaiser goes for repeated right hands. Sami Zayn then fights back, but then Matt Riddle tags in. He runs into an uppercut by Kaiser, but then Giovanni Vinci tags in. Vinci works on Riddle into the corner, but then we get a kick to the chest of Vinci on Kaiser. Or I should say, kick to the chest of Vinci. After that, Riddle hits a gut-wrench suplex, but then Gunther makes the tag. And Riddle and Gunther have a badass face-off. Riddle then tries to go for the double leg takedown, but then Gunther holds on. And then Riddle tries to go for repeated kicks. And then Gunther hits a kick on Riddle's knee. After that, he hits a furious chop. And you know how Gunther is with his chops. He hits a chop, taking Riddle down. And once we're back from commercial break, Riddle and Kaiser are fighting it out. Riddle then tries to tag in Sami or Kevin Owens, but then Kaiser ends up hitting a suplex on Riddle. So it's going to take a while for Riddle to tag in. We then get a cover into near fall, but then he takes Riddle into the corner. Gunther makes the tag, but then he boots Kevin Owens, who isn't the legal man. After that, Riddle hits a knee on Gunther, but then Kaiser comes in and gets sent to the outside by Riddle. Gunther then grabs the knee of Riddle, but then Riddle manages to fight back. Sami then gets sent to the steel steps when he tries to tag in Riddle, but then Gunther drops Riddle down. After that, we get a cover by Gunther and a near fall. After that, Riddle hits a German suplex on Gunther, but then Kevin Owens and Vinci make the tag. Kevin Owens goes for repeated stomps on Vinci, but then we get a kick by Vinci, but then Kevin Owens fights back and hits a senton. After that, we get a German suplex by Kevin Owens on Giovanni Vinci, and then he hits the cannonball on Vinci into the corner. We then get a cover by KO and a near fall, but then KO goes to the top, but then Kaiser comes in on the apron. After that, Kevin Owens sets him up for the powerbomb, but then Vinci manages to hit a dropkick. Vinci and Kaiser then work on Kevin Owens and hits the high-low, dropping Kevin Owens onto the outside. Once we're back from commercial break, Kevin Owens is on the top, but then he hits the frog splash off the top on Vinci. At this point, the hot tag is made. Sami goes for repeated clotheslines on Kaiser. We get a backdrop on Kaiser, and then he takes out Gunther with the Michinoku driver. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. After that, Sami sets up the haluva kick on Kaiser, but then he runs into a boot. At this point, Gunther is the legal man, but then Gunther hits a series of chops on Sami. Sami manages to hit the Blue Thunder bomb. After that, we get a cover and a near fall when Vinci makes the save. Riddle comes in, he goes to the top, but then Vinci comes in. Kevin Owens then hits the stunner on Giovanni Vinci. Kevin Owens then gets taken to the outside, but then Kaiser gets taken to the outside again. Sami then sets up the haluva kick on Gunther, but then instead, Gunther applies the sleeper on Sami, but then Riddle hits the floating bro onto the back of Gunther. Sami then hits the exploder on Vinci into the corner, but then Sami sets up the haluva kick once again. Gunther then grabs the ankle of Sami Zayn. Then we get a super kick on Gunther by Kevin Owens, but then Riddle sends him to the announce table. Then Kaiser gets taken to the outside, and once we're back in the ring, Vinci goes for a clothesline to the corner. But Sami turns around. This spot was actually badass, and this was actually leading towards the finish. So Vinci goes for the clothesline into the corner, but then Sami runs towards Vinci and immediately hits the haluva kick. That haluva kick, man, is like a move like that just happens out of fucking nowhere in the corner. Kevin Owens tags in. KO is on the top, hits the Swanton Bomb, and we get a cover, and the babyfaces get the win over Imperium. Of course, Gunther did not get pinned. It'd be very stupid for Gunther to get pinned because, of course, he is currently the Intercontinental Champion, and he is currently, of course, basically he's having this big-ass undefeated streak. But, I mean, I don't know, man. We really need to do something with Marcel Bartel and Baby Nightmare. Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser. But again, man, like I know what they're doing here, but I mean, man, we really need to start having like legit wins with the Ludwig and Giovanni. Like really, they really need to like set them up for like the tag team championships sometime down the line. I don't think it's gonna be now. It's definitely not gonna be now because right now it's not the right time to do that. But hopefully down the line, we can start talking about potential tag team championships with Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser. But right now is not the time. But the babyfaces get the win, and that is that. And actually, that was not the end of the show. The match actually surprisingly ended roughly around like 10:55. So we had like 5 minutes left. Cody Rhodes is backstage, and then Triple H comes in, and he wanted to sit down with Cody, and he talks about how he understands how angry he is. Cody says he understands what he's trying to do, and Cody says that he doesn't need any medical attention. And Triple H says he understands he is afraid, and at this point, Cody gets pissed. And Hunter says that he is afraid that a doctor might come in and says that he is injured. And Hunter says that he doesn't question it for a second, but think about the year that you spent in the shelf. And then Cody Rhodes asks Triple H, what would you do? And he's going to Night of Champions to fight Brock Lesnar. Both men sit down. Triple H looks at Cody Rhodes, and he just kind of like pats him on the leg and then leaves. So they're really going full-fledged with this. The match is going to be happening at Night of Champions regardless. I don't see it being a scenario in which the match is canceled and Cody Rhodes is not going to wrestle. He is going to be wrestling, but I love the fact that they kind of added Triple H in the mix with this, kind of like not to motivate Cody Rhodes, but just telling him like, hey, man, I don't think this is the right decision to make. And then Cody Rhodes just immediately fires back at Triple H. But that was the ending of Raw. And overall thoughts on this show, to be quite honest with you, this show did not feel important at all whatsoever. It's the go-home show for Night of Champions, and honestly, the 3 hours of this show didn't really feel like a go-home show. They didn't really give me any more excitement leading up to the show. I mean, nonetheless, Night of Champions is going to be a great show regardless. Like, don't get me wrong. But again, there's nothing really that much important happening on Raw. Really, a lot of the major stuff happening is going to be on SmackDown, and to be quite honest with you, even SmackDown has its own problems. And honestly, I definitely do see eventually, just the Bloodline stuff being like the only thing of relevance on that show. But nonetheless, Raw was a show that just didn't feel important at all. That's just my opinion. But yeah, that was my Raw review from May 22nd, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the Squared Circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays signing out. I'll see you guys later.